Today's episode is brought to you by Forvis Mazars.
SoundCartel.
From SoundCartel, I'm Nicole Goodman, and this is Business Essentials Daily. When trying to resolve conflict, have you ever had trouble pinpointing the elephant in the room? And once you've found it, how difficult is it to see it out the door? Well, conflict coach and author Genevieve Hawkins has a trunkload of advice. She says that with a bit of humility, you'll be able to find the animal in question and see it from all perspectives. And as she tells Jeff Waters, being gentle and supportive can bring it out of hiding.
Yeah, so look, when we talk about an elephant, we talk about that proverbial elephant in the room. When people are having, conversations with each other and then they go, there's this topic that no one really wants to kind of venture into, but a lot of people actually know that it exists. So there's this elephant and we're just going to ignore it and we're going to try and move around it and get around it.
Well, obviously that elephant needs to be chatted to, or at least addressed and described. What's the first step to take to achieve that?
So, Jeff, the first one is understanding why they exist, why elephants exist in the first place.
Ooh.
And, so it's this recognition that we all wear multiple lenses over our eyes. And, in fact, some of those lenses are so ingrained into who we are and how we see the world, we're not even actually aware that it's a particular lens or angle on the world. So, anything from, in fact, our genetics, right back to genetics and how our brains process things, to what our childhood's been, what our life experience has been, what's gone well, what hasn't gone well, gives us a view of the world. And because we're not aware of those lenses, we think that we have the truth. We look at something and go, well, that's reality. That's the way reality is. And elephants exist because there are other people seeing the world from a really, really different perspective to ours. And so that's why the elephant exists, because you go, it's like there's this big thing in front of us and I'm seeing it from one perspective and you're seeing it from another. So I've got the trunk and you've got a leg and we're going, oh, no. This is the way it is. And people's like, you've got to kidding me. This is the way it is. And if we're not feeling comfortable about being able to have those sorts of conversations, the elephant starts to grow bigger and bigger, because I'm looking at you going, why on earth can you not see that this is an issue? And you be either completely oblivious or looking at me going, oh, she's a bit weird because she's saying these things and it doesn't quite make sense.
It can also be conflict avoidance though, can't it?
It absolutely can be. So, the elephant starts because we have different lenses. When we avoid talking about it because we don't feel comfortable about conflict, it grows. So one of the critical things that we all need to get better at is actually having these conversations, which, interestingly enough, if you approach it in the right way, isn't conflict. It's not conflict. It's actually being able to get curious about different people's perspectives.
And being professional.
And being professional about it. Our problem is when we bottle it up. So it's a disease. I talk about it being quiet conflict that exists in a workplace. It's this disease because people often are completely either ignoring it or don't want to know about it. And it erodes health, it erodes performance in the business. And it grows and grows and grows until a point that actually the tension builds to a point that real conflict, as in loud and obvious conflict, occurs. So we need to be able to have those conversations early in order to shrink the elephant.
Yes, well, shrink the elephant or get a broom and shoo it out the front door. How on earth do you move that elephant?
Well, and in fact, I'll say first, Jeff, with moving the elephant, I would sit there and say elephants will always exist because of our different perspectives. And that's actually okay. If we accept that, if we can sit there and go, we have this really interesting elephant because we have different perspectives, but actually we can walk around it. We can walk around it together and see each other's perspectives. That's what helps it shrink. And that diversity of experience and that diversity of thought actually makes organisations richer as long as we can have those right conversations. But the first part of that, so if I'm in a room with you and I realise that we see the world in a really different way, the first step into that is going, how do I connect with you more? So how do I help you and I see each other as human beings? Because actually that's the start of helping our animal brain going, you're not a threat. You're not a foe, you are a friend. We've got something in common here. We've got a bit of oxytocin flowing between us. Then we can actually feel a little bit more comfortable about maybe we can get curious about each other's perspectives.
All right, but from a practical sense, I mean, we've been talking a bit philosophically, really. Can you offer some practical advice for a manager who's in this position?
Yeah, so the first part with connection, never underestimate the power of connection. So I go, when you start working with people, or even now, you're in the middle of looking at team, reflect on saying, do you know what you have in common with people you're working with that has nothing to do with work? And if you don't, find out something that you genuinely have in common with them that has nothing to do with work, because it creates a really great way of having a conversation with them. The second thing is that if I'm a manager with my team, what I really need to be able to do is keep giving positive feedback about things. So I want to kind of elicit what we call serotonin, which says I feel valued. Because if we can elicit this oxytocin and serotonin in others, people are then able to be curious enough that when I come to you and go, hey, Jeff, I feel like I need to have a bit of a conversation here, because I was conscious in the meeting that we just had that you said this and I felt something different, like I was thinking something different. And here's the magic question or statement saying, can you help me understand, Jeff, where your perspective's coming from? And so if you're actually feeling like you're safe with me because I'm connected with you as a human and I'm valuing you.
And you're making the effort.
And I'm making the effort to go, help me understand your perspective. So I'm not coming in going, Jeff, I need to tell you my perspective because I have the truth. It's sitting back and going, what if I'm wrong? Or what if there is, or as I talk about, accept multiple truths, accept that there are these multiple angles on a situation. And I start with reaching out to you to go, help me understand, Jeff, where you're at, what you're thinking about. Because when you feel heard, you're more likely then to be able to get curious, where I can sit there and go, I find that fascinating, Jeff, that's your perspective. That's really, really interesting. Is it okay? What I'd love to do is actually share with you my perspective and where I'm coming from, because not surprisingly, it's different. No wrong or right between us, but it's different. So let me share that. And because I've helped you to feel safe and secure and I'm showing that effort, so I'm curious about you, you're more likely to get curious about my perspective.
How do you do that without becoming passive-aggressive?
Ooh, that's really interesting. I think part of it is that you've got to believe in the first place that you can accept multiple truths. Like that's kind of probably one of the first things to come back to.
That's the first step, isn't it?
You've got to accept
humility, the humility. Yeah.
Yeah. And so I also say to people, that's one of the questions you need to keep having in your head is, what if I'm wrong? So the moment that you sit in a space that you go, I'm right, I am absolutely 100% right, and these people all have three heads and they don't know what they're on about, you're actually shutting down the ability to actually talk about that elephant effectively.
That's conflict coach and author Genevieve Hawkins. Business Essentials Daily is a SoundCartel podcast. Producers are Nick Schildberger, Chris Ashmore, Jeff Waters and myself. Technical production by Pete Letts. I'm Nicole Goodman. Thanks for listening. We'll bring you more Be Daily next week. SoundCartel. This episode was brought to you by Forvis Mazars. To find out more, visit forvismazars.com/au. That's FORVISMAZARS.com/au.